Okay, we're ready to begin now. So I would like to first of all say welcome to everyone to the webinar on Unite and Reconciliation, beginning with acknowledgement of the land on which we're meeting. I'm on the land of the Waterwarring people, the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and to all elders who've joined us on this webinar today. I'm Amy Poynton. I'm a member of the Children's Ground Dual Governance Board, and I'll be facilitating the panel for you. The Dual Governance Board for Children's Ground recognizes the standards of First Nation and Western governance. And as William, our chair, who's also on the panel today, often says, it's about walking side by side, which is a really beautiful spirit to bring into Reconciliation Week. So just for a marker here on the purpose, Reconciliation Week is the 27th of May to the 3rd of June. And that's where Children's Ground does promote our Wear It Yellow campaign, which you see sort of the coloring in my backdrop here. And today we're going to be learning about the importance of the campaign from people who have experience in planning and enjoying, driving real impact in the way that we advocate, educate, and fundraise. And also to learn about corporate experience in driving reconciliation plans so that you on your own reconciliation journey this May and going forward, will get some ideas that you can perhaps take some tangible steps forward to lift your reconciliation plan going forward. So importantly, our panelists, I want to give a quick introduction. So William, good morning. Hello, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
William is an Arunda man from Alice Springs. He's had decades of experience in not to talk about all your decades, William, but decades of experience in working across many organizations in corporations, government, not-for-profit. As I mentioned, he is the chair of Children's Ground, and for 20 years he was executive director of Tangentyere Council, and he is the 2023 NAIDOC Male Elder of the Year. So William, welcome, and we'll turn to you in just a moment. Sarah Bailey is partnership manager at MECCA Empower. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hey, everyone.
Sarah is a senior social impact specialist with over 20 years developing high-profile programs and partnerships. Quite an incredible background. Has been with Empower since 2023 and works with a really interesting, innovative partnership model that supports 21 community partnerships across the Empowered Collective. And if that doesn't sound busy enough, she's also committed to supporting mental health for women and children, having in her spare time created a world's first children's mental health initiative in collaboration with DreamWorks, 20th Century Fox, and Smiling Mind that was profiled across the national media. So Sarah, that sounds like another webinar we'll need to invite you back for, but you're laughing. Nobody likes to hear their own intros, do they?
Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome. Fallon Wanganeen. Hey, Fallon, good to see you.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. First Nations Career Engagement Manager at ANZ Bank, proud Narunga man, and has a passion for leading and driving positive change for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Over 10 years working across the bank in a variety of areas in promoting enterprise-wide recruitment practices, driving talent and engagement. He's now managing the delivery and execution of ANZ's first ever First Nations recruitment, retention, and professional development strategy. I think, Fallon, your many years of working in this space has resulted in that first ever strategy. So well done you on getting it to that point. So I might get right into it then. We wanted to start here with just getting some insights. And William, I'll turn over to you. Just your, based on that introduction, we're talking about a Unite for Reconciliation and Wear It Yellow, but really your thoughts on what reconciliation means for First Nations people, and particularly what you think First Nations people would want to see from the corporate world in support of reconciliation.
First and foremostly, just an introduction into Children's Ground, and you gave that introduction just a few seconds ago. Children's Ground is very much about enabling people to have agency in their lives, to have a say in their lives. It comes about when the damning statistics of closing the gap, forever and a day, the statistics are going down and not looking good at all in many ways, shapes and forms. So people who live 24 hours, 24/7 in very extreme circumstances and situations are never ever consulted about what they see as the solution in regards to their problems that they are facing. And as a result of that, Children's Ground is embarked on facilitating people's access to those services by them having a say within their own lives. And as Amy says, we have a dual governance board. One governance board is being totally accountable to the people who fund us. The other governance board is totally accountable to the people we serve, made up of First Nations people. We have 70% First Nations people on the main board as well. So accountability is vitally important on both ends of the spectrum, from the people who fund us and the people who we serve. So giving agency to the community, giving agency to the people who face the most disadvantage is what Children's Ground is. It's the vehicle that people can ride on in order to access their needs in the way that they want, in the way that suits them. I think Einstein made a quote that if you do things the same thing over and over again and expect different results, then that's the definition of insanity. And it's happening all the time, because what we get is the same old, same old, same old, and no wonder we fail every time. Mm-hmm. So Children's Ground has embarked on, let's hearing the voice of the people. And then we try and facilitate that with what bandwidth we do have financially to be able to fulfill those aspirations. Mm-hmm. Community empowerment refers to the process of enabling communities to increase control over their lives. And that's what we do. In regards to corporate Australia, I think the corporate Australia is in a very good position to help us to enable that to happen, to be part of that vehicle that people can ride and fulfill the aspirations of their lives. And I see that as vital in regards to all Australians standing together in reconciliation, is by helping each other do what we have to do in order to bring about change. So I don't know whether that's in a nutshell, Amy. I don't know whether you're happy with that, but that's me.
I'm very happy with that, William. Thank you for asking. And there isn't a day that I don't hear from you that I'm inspired. Something that you said just frames it in a way that I get a deeper understanding. So thank you very much for giving us that opening. It's a lot for us to build on in the next 45 minutes. For those of you who are participating, I'm going to be turning to some questions for the whole panel. If questions come to mind or you want clarification on anything, please pop it into the Q&A section of the webinar, and we'll get to the questions as we can. But I might just turn to Fallon, when you, particularly building on what William just said around empowerment and corporate Australia walking side by side. You know, what are some of your experiences in the Reconciliation Action Plan, particularly, you know, I think in banking and particularly, I suppose at ANZ, that you would want to highlight and say, you know, you really feel that these things worked really great around reconciliation activities, and maybe even an example of where a challenge might have been?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Amy, and thanks, Uncle William, for opening up. Just quickly, just want to acknowledge that I'm joining from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation here in Melbourne, and extending respect to traditional custodians from where everyone's joining us from today, and obviously to my uncle here on the call, and to any other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that might be dialed in as well. So look, I think exactly like what Uncle was saying, corporates, we do have a really important part to play in reconciliation when we think about, the scale of the workforce and people that we've kind of got direct access to as well. And I think, here at ANZ, we've been on this reconciliation journey for a long time. We're in our last year of our second stretch wrap, and we're starting to see, the benefits and advocacy and awareness of that from, the activities. But I would say, without it necessarily being, obviously the wrap is a really important factor to that, but I think the awareness as a country more broadly, and obviously having reconciliation and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs a lot more prevalent now, is it's actually really people driven from us. We've got a workforce in Australia of 30,000 plus that covers kind of all parts of the country, from your metropolitan cities to regional Australia, and obviously remote parts of the country as well. And each one of those pockets and sites and employee bases obviously is reflective of the community that they kind of sit in as well. So we feel that with our various employee networks, and whether that's mob only networks or mob plus allies, is we're seeing the benefits of that people driven activity across the board, so that we're able to do things that are important and get involved in our own communities, as well as taking part in kind of the national conversation as well. And we here at head office are able to kind of drive and kind of put that out there. But we've seen, particularly over the last couple of years, just the uptake, the interest, and the advocacy of people from all across the business and all parts of the country, which I think is really exciting and pleasing, particularly off the back of the referendum last year and the challenges of that. But being able to have really mature and respectful conversations in the workplace and to share that information, I think has been really, really important. And it not necessarily have to be driven from the executives or the CEOs. It's kind of that top down, bottom up approach. And obviously, with such a big and diverse workforce, there are challenges that come with that, and I guess expectations of being an employer, and community expectations and employee expectations. But I feel we're really progressive here, and they're at a point where, like I said, we're able to be able to put in that support. And particularly off the back of the result, is we've just seen an influx of people across the business that want to do more, right? Which I think is just absolutely amazing, and you're showing benefit, from the organisation that we can, like I said, be doing things all across the board. And I think off the back of that the referendum result, you felt hurt and sad, but I think the overwhelming support from colleagues at the organisation, it kind of shows that light at the end of the tunnel, and we can get up and dust ourselves off and kind of keep going. And I mean, we're really excited about obviously the theme this year now more than ever, and the opportunity to get involved in the Wear It Yellow campaign as well for the first time, which is exciting. So plenty happening here. A long way to go, obviously, but you know, we're quite bullish about, you know, the direction that we're heading in.
Beautiful, thank you, and it's a beautiful segue to open this up to Sarah, because, well, Fallon, you're entering into, you know, a new campaign of Wear It Yellow, which is going to be part of your second wrap stretch. Is amazing for the organization. Well done. And Sarah, your focus here with Wear It Yellow is really building on what started organically, similar to what Fallon was just saying, that bottom up sort of, you know, where's the energy in the community. So maybe we can hear a bit about what it's meant for MECCA with You Wear It Yellow.
Absolutely. Thanks, Amy. And just like to say that I'm joining from the Boonwurrung land of the Kulin Nation, and also pay my respects to elders past, present, and those attending on the call. Really thrilled to be part of this conversation. For those, I guess, who aren't aware, Empower is MECCA's social change movement for gender equality. And as Amy mentioned earlier, we're lucky to work with 21 organisations that we call the Empower Collective, that are sort of working on the ground to try and achieve equality within Australia and internationally. 4 of those are First Nations partners, including Children's Ground. And I guess we see Reconciliation Week as a really wonderful opportunity to celebrate First Nations people and for us to support our partners. So last year was the first year that we got involved with Wear It Yellow, and that was off the back of having a conversation with Children's Ground about how do we best support you during Reconciliation Week. And so once we decided to sort of get involved with Wear It Yellow, it became part of a whole campaign that was sort of, I guess, it predated Wear It Yellow, which was a lot of other work around how do we best support First Nations communities. And that's like through our RAP, through a long-term partnership with Evolve Communities on team member education and awareness, which included all around the Voice campaign and what that meant. Having First Nations speakers, guest speakers come in and talk at lunch and learns and other opportunities, doing on-country visits with some of our senior leaders. And as part of all of that, and what we're trying to do with Empower is really build engagement, awareness, and understanding so that can be like a really positive force for change. So when we run campaigns and activations, we work really hard to make sure that they resonate with our team, with our customers, if it's going to be relevant to customers, and it's going to capture their hearts and minds and inspire them to take action rather than just be another thing that's coming through that they have to look at. So we really think about how to make it our own, how to make it MECCA, and what makes sense for us. And I guess as part of that, we're also always looking at progress over perfection. So we use a test and learn approach. We'll try things, we'll find out what works, what doesn't, and then we build from there. So last year, for example, was the first time we participated in Wear It Yellow, and we had Joe Horgan, our founder, talk at our MMM, our Monday morning meeting, to the whole business about the campaign to start off with and just get everyone really excited. We had our exec leadership team go through a truth-telling process, and as well I attended the Children's Ground truth-telling session, which I highly recommend for anyone on the call. It's a really fantastic way to get a deep understanding of some of the issues and the history and where we've come from and where we're trying to head to. We had webinars for the business to participate in, a number of those. And then we ran an awareness campaign, and we started it just in our support centre, which is head office for us, which has around 800 team members. And that was sort of, you know, key messages and imagery through all of our comms channels, like a digital screen takeover. We had physical collateral across the whole building, email and e-news. And then on the Wednesday during Reconciliation Week, we asked everyone to dress up and wear yellow to the office, which was an absolute hit. And certainly everyone at MECCA absolutely loves a dress up. I think we've got a slide which just shows some of those images, which might come up at some point. And I guess what we saw off the back of that is that really quite organically, some of our retail team picked up what we were doing at Support Centre. And some of those store teams jumped on board and they painted their nails, they wore yellow makeup, and they got really creative with it because they can't wear yellow clothes in store. So how do they do that through what MECCA's about, through makeup, etc.? And I guess, you know, for us, that's how a movement begins, right? It's the ripple of change happens. People get inspired. They want to get involved, and it naturally evolves from there.
Mhm.
And so I guess the evolution of our program this year is about how do we bring the whole business? How do we now expand that out to our whole business, to all of our retail stores, to our customers, to our DC? And we've challenged ourselves to like really think bigger and bolder this year. And so through MECCA Changemakers, which is our volunteer program, we've got a subcommittee together with representatives from all across different parts of the business who are going to be leading that creative planning and delivery of the campaign and coming up with some, you know, great ideas. And it will be both awareness raising with team members and customers, as well as fundraising with our team. And so I guess my take on this is, you know, I encourage anyone who's on this call who's sort of interested in thinking about how they might want to get involved or what they might want to do is just start somewhere. Start with something. You know, it can be small, as Fallon said, it could be top and bottom led. It could just be in the middle. Like, just start with something and then build on it from there, and something that's right for you.
Yeah. Wow. It's so inspiring. That energy in those pictures is amazing. What a team. What a team. And so this year, when you think about what was done, sort of all that growth, it's a lot more structured than organic, I have to say. That's a lot of activities, the truth telling, the webinars, the leadership connectedness. You know, William, when you're looking and hearing that story, what do you think? What are you feeling about corporate participation when you hear Sarah's story?
I think it's how we have survived so far in regards to the bandwidth that we work with now. And Children's Ground is forever grateful, first and foremostly, to a lot of philanthropic support that we have. There's a lot more that can happen. We're currently working on convincing government that we are on the right track, and the results and evidence is there. It's very hard to change the status quo in relation to how governments work. They're more the same every year, and they're good at prescribed solutions, not solutions that come from the people. So, Amy, it's a bit of miss of me too, in regards to I never did welcome people to country. Past, present, and emergent, I think I make up 2 of those categories. But yeah, to the country of Mbarndua, Central Ireland, Eastern Ireland, Western Ireland, and Southern and Northern Ireland are the main tribal groups that come into Central Australia, even though Alice Springs is the service centre for the entire Central Australian region. The traditional owners of Mbarndua are the Luritupa people. They're the ones that hold the native title to this country. So yeah, I forgot that, and I should have did that at the start too. And when Fallon did it, I thought, wow, I missed it. But anyway, but corporate Australia, yes, I totally agree that there's many, many avenues that can happen, many, many ways of doing things. In just even advocacy for people like the most disadvantaged. I thought the referendum would be the opportunity. Sadly, that went astray, but I don't think that was on behalf of the Australian people. I think a lot of people got confused with the messaging. And so I know that there is a lot of goodwill out there. I mean, it's extreme. People are only too willing to help. And yeah, the messaging was off track, and it would have been easier to say, recognize us, respect us, and listen to us, but that never did come to the fore. So I felt a bit disappointed in that regard, because the Yes campaign sort of lost it a little bit and got engaged in trivial arguments.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing got sideswiped and taken away. But I still believe that the goodwill is there, and yeah, I think corporate Australia can walk the same road as us and enjoy the Australian country like we do. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, William. And yes, I am very inspired by what Sarah was sharing, and also that I could agree with you more, the goodwill that has blossomed from what was a really heartbreaking situation is a real opportunity, I think, for corporate Australia to gather its forces with the teams around them and clients who are interested. So, Fallon, when you're now embarking on, as you said, your second stretch reconciliation action plan and doing looking at Wear It Yellow for the first time, for those who are listening, what sort of challenges have you faced and how you overcame them? Maybe give some insight into, that doesn't have to be big challenges, but just to get things off the ground, anything that you would be suggesting others consider if they're wanting to introduce it into their business space.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big one for us, and I know probably every organisation or workplace across the country is just that education and awareness piece. And again, when you're dealing with tens of thousands of people, there's a huge spectrum of where people are coming from in terms of what they know, what their assumptions are, and the lived experiences that they've got around engagement with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as well. So I know again, we still haven't got to everyone and got that right. And like I said, there's a huge population of people that you're kind of working with. But I think if you can help people to understand the why, that's kind of been the big piece for us is, people know that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander affairs is important, high level, like, yes, we know it's important, but I think when you're able to articulate the why that's when you're able to kind of win people over and have those advocates or people who may have been unsure or scared to get involved in a conversation, bringing along on that journey as well. And we've seen the benefits of that in terms of being able to provide kind of safe spaces for people to have conversations. And, we work with Mundanara Bales from the Black Card who do kind of the cultural awareness stuff for us here across the organisation. And they do an amazing job. And the feedback off the back of those sessions is people walk away just being like, wow, I didn't know this, or my thinking's been really challenged. And again, coming back to being like, I want to do more, or how do I kind of do more? And look, we're not all perfect, and we are going to kind of get things wrong, and there are things that are going to happen. But I think, if there's a purpose behind what you're doing and a genuine intent to do things right, is, that is, I think, what's most important with, Aboriginal people in the space is, it's not that, again, you don't know anything or you're going to ask the wrong question, but if your intent is correct around that's where we can kind of grow kind of together as well. And I think the other big piece is kind of us moving away from reconciliation is something for our First Nations employees and colleagues to kind of do and to drive and changing that narrative so that it's around, our allies to kind of be doing that work as well. And again, that comes with that sort of education piece as well, right? So, I would certainly say to, any organizations, large or small, is, as an organization or a workplace, work out what it is that you're wanting to do. What's the problem that you're trying to solve? How are you trying to do that engagement? And like I said, be, really purposeful and look at, whatever the values are of your organization and live through that and, trust that process. And, the growth is kind of organic off the back of that. And I think once people can see that, you're doing the right things or trying to do the right things is, again, that's when the kind of floodgates open, and it becomes a lot easier to kind of work through. So yeah, and I've been at ANZ for coming into my 12th year now. So looking back to when I started as a trainee to where I am now, obviously we've got a long way to go as a country and as an organisation. But I think having perspective and context in looking at where we've come from to kind of where we are now, we've come leaps and bounds, and I'm really excited about the future and where we're placed as an organisation, and how we can continue to support our ANZ community, but also communities more broadly.
Thanks, Fallon. There's so much in that, and yes, this is I suppose for those listening and tuning in here is it is those first steps, and using Sarah's progress over perfection line. I love that. It is about knowing what the purpose is, what is the why, and then just stepping into it, and then to hear where it's gotten to is really inspiring. A reminder to those that there was some technical glitch with the chat, but we have a few questions coming through. So if you had trouble before, please just go ahead and pop in those questions now. But Sarah, when you hear that and you think about what you've been doing, whether it's around Wear It Yellow or other advocacy that you've worked on, what are your insights on how to get that buy-in and how to make it meaningful? You and Fallon both work with large distributed teams as well. So, what would you share with those who are, stepping into this space?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. And I agree with actually quite a few things that Fallon said. I came before MECCA from NAB, so I understand working for a large organisation with tens of thousands of people and some of the challenges, but the strengths that brings too. But I think from my experience, it's the basic principles apply in terms of trying to get different buy-in at different levels. It's sort of that being able to clearly understand and able to articulate, as Fallon said, why a business should get behind a particular initiative or why a team should, and then making sure that it's authentic and real, because authenticity and belief requires conviction. So why are you doing it? What's the purpose and the intention? What are you trying to achieve? And thinking through what does success look like, so that you're making sure that you're setting it up for success in the first place. And then I think it's sort of having an understanding of where are people in the business coming from, what's the base level of knowledge and understanding at the point of time that you're going to start an initiative, and then meeting them where they're at. I think not trying to create a one-size-fits-all approach, and not assuming that what's going to work for everyone. So, you don't have to do it all alone. Reaching out, speaking to the experts in the different divisions or areas of the business, asking them for help to review messaging or channels or champions. And that extends out of your own organisation. Love to chat with Fallon further about their wrap. They're so far ahead of us, and it's amazing to see, and we're always learning from others. So get that support from outside as well. But for campaigns and things, I think simple and consistent key messages that are repeated is really important. Identifying and thinking about who are your best influencers and champions in the business in relation to that specific initiative. And they can and should be at all different levels of the business, and engage them early. And try to share ownership of the initiative with those relevant stakeholders. So it's not just sitting with one part of the business, particularly in a really large business where it can be seen as their thing. And, as I mentioned earlier, this year, that's why we're trying to engage our volunteers through our volunteer program that are key stakeholders from the relevant parts of the business, and who are passionate advocates for First Nations organisations. They're strong influences within their team, particular teams, to lead this Wear It Yellow work for us. I do think getting senior leadership early is really critical, and that's often the reality is that's often what mobilises teams. Storytelling is super important. At MECCA, we have a saying, is like, people won't always remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And authentically connecting people to the initiative and why it matters for your business or your team through storytelling is, I think, really important and something we try to do a lot of. And then it's probably also thinking about linking it to other important drivers for the business. So whether that's commercial or values drivers, and again, as Fallon said, whether that's your wrap or whatever it might be, linking it, whatever the initiatives, to that, so that people understand the broader connection and why it matters to the business. And yeah, I guess it's about just making it your own, like I said earlier, being thoughtful about that and cascading the activities at different levels. And, for us, it's trying to make it MECCA. And you saw in those photos, it's trying to bring it to life for your own organisation.
Yeah, definitely. And that shared ownership, so again, with the large distributed network of business units across, you have shops, ANZ has business units and branches, you want to know that they feel an ownership to that, whatever they're going to do in their spaces, because then that comes back to you, right? You hear their stories back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think your stores at MECCA have done that for you, Sarah. You told some stories about people already getting onto the fundraising, and then you're finding out what they're doing. It's like, wow, where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, already we've had our Brisbane airport team, have donated $650 already just from the team themselves for Wear It Yellow this year, and we haven't even launched a campaign yet. But that's as I said before, that's the power of a movement. If you get it right, if you can, if it is authentic, if it makes sense for your business, if you're explaining how people can get involved, it will naturally snowball from there and take on a life of its own. And that's what we want to see. If no one's doing anything, you're probably not hitting the mark, but that's okay. Just learn and try and start again.
Yeah, great. To learn, try and start again. And in the learning and in the building, one of the questions that's come through is about how do we do this in partnership with First Nations and Torres Strait Islander people, so that their voice is very clear in everything that we're doing. So can a reconciliation action plan, stand on its own with non-First Nations? No, but then there can be a burden on First Nations people to be the ones that always have to be in the room and always have to be culturally directing traffic and things like that. And I know, William, you helped me once with an organization I was working with that was struggling with the acknowledgement to country and what does that mean and who wants to do it and who doesn't want to do it. And it was William's wisdom that landed everybody understanding why we were even there, because that almost got lost, in the whole discussion. So maybe, Fallon, if I turn to you with this idea of how do we encourage that connection and walking side by side, as I said at the top, without that burden of the carrying the culture through all the different activities corporates are doing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a valid and interesting kind of question, because that expectation piece and that cultural load piece is, really prevalent and important, and is a complex one to navigate. But I feel like what we've tried to do here at ANZ is find that balance and giving mob who are here, who are passionate, who do want to be involved, actually giving them that opportunity to sort of put their hand up and volunteer and come in and out of things as well, and initiatives that they might be particularly passionate about or interested in, or might actually have some kind of subject matter expertise as well, without it necessarily being the expectation that every time, you're a blackfellow, I've got a blackfellow problem or question, so I'm kind of going to go to you. So I think for us, again, that education and awareness piece around within the organisation is what channels and levers do we pull when we've got something that we're trying to identify. And I think I mentioned at the top of the call, we've got, ally and First Nations employee networks that are, absolutely driving things across the organisation. We've got our our mob only network, which are there as a kind of consultative body. And again, that's as a volunteer kind of network and that group think, with also the diversity within that group to be able to provide advice as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander employees that work at ANZ. Well, what's actually our experience as well? And again, we might not be HR policy experts or financial wellbeing experts or law experts, but we can provide our insights and guidance and experience around that as well. So I think it's there where the expectation is not set that you will do that, but people who are particularly passionate completely have that platform to be able to get in and do that, which I think is a really healthy balance. And again, the opportunity to kind of opt in and opt out of that so that you're not completely kind of burning yourself out as well. And again, do we have a right and best practice? Not necessarily at this stage, but are we kind of working towards and continuing to improve and change things and trial things? Yes. And again, it's that guidance from our mob and getting that balance right with our, senior leaders and our advocates at the business so that, we can kind of do things together.
Yeah. Thank you. And I think, that idea of the advice, how do we get the advice where we need the advice, that two-way street on that, as opposed to, the example of, oh, this is a First Nations matter, therefore I need a First Nations person sitting here with me. It's not so binary. There's a lot more to it. And having those relationships, it's almost this social network map I visualize as you're talking. And now it becomes situational and maybe even that organic sense to it. And I think Children's Grounds dual governance is another example that I'd throw in there, where because we have, we're ASIC registered, we are a business in the Australian business landscape. So we have that corporate governance and we have a cultural governance, the corporate governance is 70% Aboriginal membership, and cultural governance is 100%, as William talked about. And in that, we understand what sits in which world, where do we overlap, where do we connect? So I think that's another example. And I know that we're just running out of time and some questions are coming through. I might just throw this one to Michelle, and then I think we might need to wrap up. But the question came up. Sorry, not to throw this to Michelle. Can we, trying to understand what the barriers are for organizations that sometimes have a reconciliation action plan, but then that's kind of the neutral position, even though people in the organization maybe want to do more, maybe want to agitate for more, and they're not sure how to open that up even wider, if maybe the senior leadership or the whole organization is in a little bit more of a holding pattern. Do Sarah or Fallon or even William, any of you want to make any comment on that? How do you agitate for change when maybe in your environment, it's not an environment that's quite ready for too much?
Anyone?
Yeah, I'm happy to give a quick kind of insight, certainly from my perspective. And I think it comes back to what each of us have spoken about is, understanding and being able to articulate the why. And I think particularly from an organization's perspective is looking at, from your organization, what's your kind of purpose statement, your vision, your values, and how can you align what we're doing in the reconciliation space to your kind of BAU business, structure? Because again, we're not trying to recreate the wheel here, right? And give anyone kind of any additional work. It's going, well, what are we doing as an organization, and how can we do that also in kind of the reconciliation space as well? So I think, like I said, just being able to articulate why it's important and why it makes sense for your organization. It's like a business case, right? Is being able to do that. I feel like, you look at what's that low hanging fruit. And once you start to get success and build evidence, is naturally it starts to grow from there.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess there's examples of where there are very real barriers to that. So anything, Sarah, you'd want to add to that before we?
I'd just add that I think think it does start with education. I think where you can, if there's a desire from team members, but perhaps it's not, or there's some blockages higher up, it's just trying to bring in some education for the senior leaders, and First Nations led education, and just helping them to understand that it's not perhaps as scary to take a position. It's just supporting, and it's raising awareness, and there's actually nothing too scary about that. And I think once they understand more about the background, then perhaps it becomes a bit easier to do more. I also know, I know there are some other corporates that I've certainly heard that perhaps have the position of, we don't want to do. There are some in the organisation that really want to do acknowledgements of country, for example, and they're like, we can't do that because we're not doing enough other stuff, so it seems performative. And I guess my response to that is just start with something. It's okay. Like, as long as you mean it and it's intentional and you understand why you're doing it, start with that and build from there. And again, try to bring in some education and grow it, but don't not do anything because you're not doing everything.
And just quickly off the back of that, if I can, I know we're pressed for time, but when we talk about that education, and it doesn't have to be as formal as a 4-hour cultural awareness session or going out on country. We do some fantastic things here where we gather resources. It's books, it's podcasts, it's documentaries, it's movies. It's kind of gathering these resources that people have access to, and having people kind of go on that self-paced learning journey as well, more informally. So if you're finding hard to get the commitment around, again, a paid course, it's looking at here, sharing a podcast or sharing a documentary that you really liked, and starting that education piece there, and again, opening up that kind of growth mindset and curiosity for people.
Absolutely. And one thing that, because I have been involved with an organization that was very much pushing back on to Sarah's point on doing acknowledgement, because it just didn't feel genuine and authentic. And what we did is we really spent time in what you would call listening sessions, and we just listened to people and their concerns without responding, judging, trying to solve. We just listened. And so I think, when we do the walk and talk with our communities, sometimes the walk and talk with those that are feeling whatever they're feeling, and it feels like a barrier. It's good to get underneath that and understand what's going on for them and how they got to that point. But on that note, we do have to close, which is sad because we could probably go for a few more hours. The insights are amazing. William, I want to give you the last word. So anything you want to add or any wrap-up comments you want to make, and thanks to Sarah and Fallon, and anything else, William, that you'd like to share before we close?
Community empowerment is more than just people's involvement, participation, or engagement of communities. It implies community ownership, an action that explicitly aims for social and cultural and political change. Giving ownership is something that Western models are very reluctant to do. Western governments are very reluctant to do. It's all about control and control and control. Children's Ground is relinquishing that control back to the people. It's like buying a brand new car and saying, here, you drive it, we'll sit in the back seat. And we'll watch you just how you drive and what you do with it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it gives people agency and choice in regards to their lives. And that's the element of enabling. And I think that's where corporate Australia can step in and enable people to have that agency. On that note, thank you, Amy.
Thank you. And as we've talked about previously, William, corporate Australia has an opportunity, because of the resources that they have and the flexibility they have that we don't necessarily get in other avenues of how we grow that agency. So for those who want to know more about Children's Ground, we're at Yellow. You go onto the website for that. You have the invite. You can write back to us. Sarah, Fallon, William, thank you. Thank you so much. Very gratefully for your participation and insights, and wish you all the best and look forward to connecting with you during Reconciliation Week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So much.
Amy.
Thanks for having us.
everyone.